ake kenu nyameng ñinam programme oti mum binalale Gambian Talents TV arabo araba kabo talent nani foka jitala luluka nin ko aka kenu nyameng ñi ado ni ciosano le fere nin ko ado ni ciosano akita ko wolti mu yalon ka mabo tale nañu jamano molo mu yalon ko fang ya ado ni ciosano lo mbake molo mu yalon ko fana ya ado ni ciosano lo bari man fin kankuran la maño bito hani fa kaseboyo nte kadi touré mbina lalije ko kuwol natale mungu buka ado ni ciosano la kuwala anin Gambian Talents TV ado ni ciosano tamabulale koteke albulan noma kona fale nyame arabo arabalo ado ni ciosano anin te touré muso fen tamabula koteke
every dog na the trap where you pre-empire and I build it up brick by brick. This is you're watching Gambian Talents TV, you know. Multi problems.
Take it from a kid. Mimfama hanifen tuaja. I'm getting it all is soul man. Muka hanifen tualeja. I'll be need lap. Ya dualeja. I'll say jaburjam. Ndul kabi freedom of space te bualeja. Dual bela dua du bual be bua. Eh. Allah bolan esti Gambian dream brikama boyo.
Ndul kanna.
It's all about Gambian Talent TV. Tune in direct. Alajibe. Stay tuned. Mimbekiring Gambia. Mimbekiring Gambia Bantala. Gambia. Look.
This is Abdul Karim Wagan Faye, and right now you're tuned into Gambia Talents TV, numero uno online TV.
I'm Sekou Jame, and I work at the Gambia Press Union. But my role here today is to chair this meeting, and it is a press conference. We will make the format to be a press conference, and I will kindly ask that we do not turn it into a forum. And the format is going to be like this. We will have a welcoming remarks from the entire civil society in the Gambia. And then we will have question and answer session. Sitting behind me and on my right as well as on my left are all of the civil society leaders you have or you can have in this country. I wouldn't go on to name each and every one, but then we all know that the trigger for today's meeting cannot be mistaken. Madi Jobate, one of us, and very prominent for that matter, has been arrested. He said he was kidnapped, really, by the police. And it is for his comments that he made to the media. For us in the civil society, we know that this is not an isolated incident. And we also know that the civic space is shrinking, because the government is casting a very wide web, a very wide net for that matter, to regulate speech, to regulate association, and these are fundamental human rights that when you regulate them the way the government wants to regulate them, then the democracy that we all fought for and brought about in this country, we will lose it. So therefore, this session, I must say, is also good, because if one thing that we can always take away from it is that when people like Madi are arrested, and when state behaves the way that they behave, like in the case of Ismaila, it brings us together. It's been some time that I see some of the civil society leaders that we see here today. That's one positive thing. And then we are not here to complain, really. Nor are we here to mourn about Madi, because this is not about Madi. So I will invite the Executive Director of Tango, Mr. Usman Yabo, a veteran, to come and give the welcoming remarks. Mr. Yabo, you're welcome.
I want to welcome, first of all, my chairman, board members, and the heads of organizations just behind me, and I want to express how happy I am to see you on this occasion. This occasion is a special occasion where civil society come together to show force, to show unity, to ensure that what we fought for 22 years is maintained. I have a message for the head of state, His Excellency Adama Barrow. We were in Brussels some 3 years back, or 3.5 years back, in a big hall where all the Gambian delegates promised the international community that never again in this country of ours will we have torture, we wouldn't have arresting people because of their opinion, we wouldn't take people to the 5-star hotel, and so on and so forth. That was a promise in Brussels. And I think it was on the basis of that that the international community were prepared to support the Gambia. I was asked to speak on that occasion. And that was the time when most of the Gambians, we jointly introduced it never again. Fortunately, when I was saying this, the current Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia was sitting right in front of me. And I'm amazed, I'm surprised. After 22 years hard work by this individual to fight for justice, to make sure that Gambia is free, we are getting into the same scenario. Unfortunately, never again is here to stay. For that reason, today, as the chairperson said, we are going to express our views about the current situation in the Gambia, particularly in reference to what has happened with Mahdi. What has happened with Mahdi, it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And so we need to make a break, we need to make a stop to this. We need to ensure that everybody is treated fairly. And for President Barrow, I want to tell him that he needs to listen to the ordinary people. The politicians are not telling him the truth. Some of the civil servants are not telling him the truth. And he needs to get closer to the ordinary people in the street. Listen to them, what they are saying. President-elect, when he was president-elect, we met him at Kairaba. And there was a promise that he would open his door every 3 months or every 6 months, we would have a chat with him. It has never happened. It's 3 years or 3.5 years, it has never happened. We want to urge him that we want to talk to him. We want to tell him what is happening in this country. We want to show him that we are still committed to ensure that freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, and so forth and so on is established in this country. On that note, I want to sincerely thank all of you for coming, and I want to invite my chairman to read out the statement prepared by civil society in the Gambia. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So therefore, the actions that the state has done, and it was the same with Dr. Ismaila Toure, Sise, the same with Mama Kande Onjata. So therefore, I will call the President's statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And on behalf of the Gambia Press Union, first I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the civil society organizations and activists for this show of solidarity. In trying times like this is what the Gambia needs. Selflessness, efforts, determination, sacrifices, and being our brother's keeper, or our sister's keeper. Mari Jobate, first of all, is officially a member of the Gambia Press Union, has always been a member of the Gambia Press Union, a very active member for that matter. And this issue, his kidnapping and discharge, touch on freedom of expression, which is very dear to our hearts and which is at the core of what we do at the Gambia Press Union. And this is why I am concerned, this is why I am scared, and this is why every journalist, first of all, every member of the Gambia Press Union, every citizen of this country should be concerned, should be scared. I've always said this, you might not agree with Mari Jobate for his position, but one thing you cannot take away is the fact that Mari has been the most consistent activist and rights defender in this country. Mari is a very rare breed. Even those who hurt him, those who want to hurt him, those who told him that they hate him and they wanted to fight with him, he stood for them. Madi, unlike any other Gambian, is the only one that nobody can put a political party jacket on. In this country today, you are either yellow or blue or green. Everybody has an identity. It doesn't matter where you stand. It doesn't matter whether the jacket fits or not. But Madi Jobate have not come across anybody who can say he belongs to this or that, because he fights for everybody's right. So to subject that kind of a person, that citizen, to all these scare tactics is unfortunate, is painfully depressing, and it is a reversal of democracy and our democratic genes as a country, as a people, collectively. Like the chair said, Madi's ordeal emanates from a media interview or articles published or broadcast by the media. So my brothers and sisters in the media, if Madi can be invited to a police station and being refused to leave the police station even when he wanted to go, even when they told him that he was not under arrest, I think you should be concerned. We've seen this is not a new trend in this country. In the last at least decade of the former regime, we all struggled as journalists to interview people. We didn't have access to people. It was very difficult to interview anybody because everybody in the country was bullied into seeing journalists as threats or bullied into seeing interviews, media interviews, as death warrants. What happened to Madi, or what's happening to Madi, is not a mistake. It's not an isolated incident. This has been building up. You go to government offices, you go everywhere. They tell you how dangerous Madi Jobate is. They tell you how everything that is negative, Madi Jobate is. So this has been building. It's not a case of mistaken identity or a mistake or an isolated case by some junior police officer. No. It has been building up. So this is one of the steps. And if anybody here or in this country thinks this is going to stop, even if the state withdraw this case against Madi, this is mistaken. It's not going to stop. This will continue because Madi will keep on talking. And the problem will be the more you talk, the more you expose the inequalities and rights violations and shortcomings and all these issues, the more you are seen as an enemy, not even a critic or an opponent. So this is why it is important for all of us, as citizens, as people, to come together and stop this from taking place and stop this from happening to anyone else. Because I've always said this is a test. This is a rehearsal. Let's go for the tough option. Mari Jobade is the loud one. Silence him. If they silence the person who fights for the rights of me and you, what makes you think that they're not going to try to silence you or do worse than just silencing you? So when you come here, when you go out there to fight for Mari Jobade, you're not fighting for Mari Jobade. You're fighting for yourself. You're fighting for me. You're fighting for everybody else. It is very important that we send a signal collectively, all of us, loud and clear, that this is not going to be condoned. We cannot stop it from happening, but if it happens, there will be a section of the society that will stand up and say, no, we're not going to accept this, and that will not just sit and moan in their houses. This is the only way that we can stop this from happening to anybody else. People can take everything from you except your sense of reasoning, your freedom to express yourself. At the Gambia Press Union, we want to make it loud and clear that we will stand with Madi. We will stand with anybody whose freedom to express himself or her. Thank you very much.
We shouldn't be worried at all about Madi, because Madi is okay. I mean, does he look intimidated? No. I mean, is he going to keep writing? Yes. And he will have on the rights of ordinary citizens, particularly victims. Because when you go after people like Madi, who you know you cannot intimidate them, there will be someone by the side of that person who will come out and say, you see what happened to Madi. You see what happened to Dr. Sise when you speak up. And that brings about what we call the chilling effect. And we know how much speech is important to everyone, particularly victims. And when they are denied that, like they've been denied for 20, we all see the kind of horrors that we saw coming from the Truth and Reconciliation past here. So when citizens are denied that rights, then they stay back. They don't participate in public lives. They don't even want to know what is going on in their country. It is very fitting to have someone who is the voice of victims in this country right now, Mr. Kijera, to come and give a solidarity statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we are seeing unfolding in our current dispensation is so disturbing and disappointing. The latest incident of Madi Jobate adds to a long list of reported cases of police abuse of power. The Victim Center is seriously concerned that these incidents are not isolated and are indicative of a culture of impunity. On 30th June 2020, Madi was invited by the police to shed light to his comments on murder of Haruna Jatta, Keba Seka, and Usman Dabo. He was subsequently charged for false publication and broadcasting. The charge for false publication and broadcasting infringed his right to express and disseminate opinions under Section 25 of the 1997 Constitution, Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and the right to freedom of expression under Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It is our position that the right to freedom of expression is a fundamental and inalienable human right, an indispensable component of democracy. What has happened to Madi Jobate
is the same old Yaya Jammeh tactics being played out purposely to silence citizens in order to grow and germinate dictatorship in this country. Once again, we say never again should we allow the occurrence of dictatorship. From July 1994, all the atrocities inflicted on people in this country are caused by security forces on the payroll of taxpayers. Members and officials of various state security apparatus are seriously implicated by revelations at the TRRC on human rights violations perpetrated on peoples of this country. If anyone have learned lesson to make it right from the opportunities offered by the Transitional Justice Program, the police is definitely not, taking their lessons from what we are learning from these incidents with Mary Jobate case. There will be no meaningful security reform program when Yaya Jammeh enablers and perpetrators continue to serve and hold key positions in the police, army, and state intelligence services. Our nation's reform agenda is hijacked by Jammeh enablers and perpetrators. We have come too far to go back to the Jammeh old ways of doing things. I think we should all come together to make our voices heard by the authorities in power. We know it is election year next year. We know politicians and their intentions. They would want to get elected by any means necessary. And let us make this clear to the government of the day that they should not make mistake to bring Yaya Jammeh back to this country as a private citizen. It is going to make this country and the people of this country a hostile people. We are not going to sit and watch that happen in this country. If the government of Adama Barrow think that by silencing the people like Mari Jobate, people like John Charles Njai, people like Sehu Jammeh, people like Sirif Bojang, people like Mr. Yabo, and many others out there, if they think that they can silence them to move their political agenda, then they are making a very big mistake. We are not going to sit by and watch that happen. This nation has fought so hard to make that change that happened in December 2016. We cannot sit by and watch that to go in vain. Many people have died for the cause of liberating this country. Many people have been enforcedly disappeared. Many people have been victimized, all in the name of state apparatus, state actors, to perpetuate self-rule in this country. We are not going to sit by and wait that happen in this country. We have registered more than 1,000 victims with the Victim Center. We have registered various categories of victims of human rights violations, from enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killing, torture, arrest and arbitrary and arrest, unlawful arrest. We have seen scores of victims that are seriously undergoing serious medical issues in this country as a result of torture and detention by the agents of Yaya Jammeh killer squads. We have had the testimonies of the junglers, of victims, of various crimes committed by state security apparatus of this country. We have seen this rule of state institutions being eroded due to political manipulation by peoples in authority. Let our government and the peoples in authority be reminded that never again shall we sit by to see the occurrence of Yaya Jammeh's old ways of tactics being employed in our current dispensation. Never again shall we see the people, the likes of Mari Jobate, being called into police questioning and to be held accountable for expressing their freedom of rights, freedom of expression. We are not going to sit by and watch that happen.
as a nation, we should come together. We should own the process of the truth. We should own the process of the transitional justice project. We should amplify the voices.
Foundation of good governance. Alas, this hope is dissipating at a pace that has become a concern for all and sundry, except for those who have their heads still buried in the sand. This concern has now manifested itself right before our eyes in the recent arrest in the guise of being called for questioning and subsequent imposition of the charge of false publication and broadcasting on a dear brother and colleague of ours in the person of Mr. Madi Jobate on the 30th of June 2020. On this day, Mr. Jobate was called by ASP Dabo of Kairaba Police Station, who asked him to report to the station to clarify a few questions relating to his interview with the media on Saturday, June 27, 2020, at the Black Lives Matter protest, where Madi, amongst other things, spoke about the torture and detention of Usman Dabo, killing of Aruna Jata and Kebas. Upon his arrival at the station, he was received by the Deputy Commissioner Pateba, who told him that they wanted the person of interest to clarify his comments that the Gambia government had not done enough to ensure justice for the killing of the 3 persons mentioned. May I pause here to ask, who amongst us has seen a report on investigations on these 3 deaths that are alleged to be connected to our security forces? What about the questions asked by their family members? Who is helping them understand what went wrong and who is responsible? Will they have to wait for another TRRC for truth to be told and then for them to have eventual closure? Madi Jobate, we are told, was informed that he was not under arrest, but yet prevented from leaving the office of the Deputy Commissioner by officers of the law. He was asked to write out a statement, which he reluctantly did, as he was called to the police station to clarify. Even though he was not under arrest, nor a suspect or a witness to any case. Upon writing the statement, without which he was held against his will, Madi Jobate was then charged with false publication and broadcasting. He was kept in the police station for 2 hours and then released on bail and asked to report the following day in the morning, 1st of July, 2020. He complied and reported at the appointed time. He was asked again to report the following day, 2nd of July, then asked to report at the prosecution unit of Canifing Station. Upon arrival, Madi was informed that he is going to be charged for false publication and broadcasting based on the comments he made at the BLM march, and now asked to report again on Monday. Madi is being charged under the same JAME laws designed to muzzle and repress freedom of expression. The same law that was used by the previous regime as an instrument of oppression to stifle dissent and media freedom. For a government that prides itself with leading a nation where freedom of expression thrives after 22 years of dictatorship. This systemic intimidation and harassment of citizens goes against the grain of their preachings. We would like to inform the state that Gambians have gone through nursery education of false promises by politicians, to the primary school of systemic intimidation and unlawful killings, and graduated on the 1st of December, or to the University of Disappearances, Torture and Unlawful Killings, and we graduated on the 1st of December 2016 with a number of degrees to PhD level in boldness, fearlessness, confidence, and courage to withstand any system that will desire to take us back to those lower grades. In 22 years, we have seen it all, been through it all, and have now decided that never again will we be dragged into the evil clutches of a repressive and a tyrannical dictatorship. We will not be silent, and we cannot be silenced. It is for this reason we gather here today to convey our utter distaste and disappointment of this act of intimidation, and as shown in this situation and those that preceded it. We are confident that Mr. Jobate's comments, as stated in the interview, fall well within his constitutional and fundamental human rights of freedom of speech and expression. We find media, the actions of the police constitute a blatant abuse of power and a direct violation of the Constitution. It can be recalled that the police had also called for questioning Dr. Skatrejane, the leader of the GDC party, Mama Kande, APRC interim party leader, Fabakary Tombong-Jatta, and Dr. Ismaila Cisse of the University of the Gambia, all in 2017, based on these citizens' quest for state accountability. This is not only an attack on Madi and others mentioned, but an attack on all of us. An attack on our fundamental rights of expression. An attack on our democracy, with the only aim to silence and intimidate critics. Today, we say enough is enough. Because it may just be you. We therefore call on all Gambians to decide and to say today that enough is enough. In the light of the above, civil society hereby calls on the state to drop all charges against Mr. Madi Jobate and offer an unconditional apology to him, to refrain from inviting citizens to question them about their opinions or remarks, as long as these opinions do not constitute incitement to violence and hate speech. Ensure that the police always act within the law with professionalism when dealing with citizens and non-citizens in the country. A repeal of all repressive and repugnant laws that negate and dilute the enjoyment of the fundamental rights guaranteed under our Constitution. 5, to desist from using the same Jammeh-era repressive laws to stifle freedom of expression and association or media freedom. 6, to demonstrate transparency and accountability by informing the general public about the state of affairs into the investigations of the murder of Haruna Jatta and Usman Dabo and the trial of suspects of the murder of Keba Seka, among other cases of concern. 7, and finally, we further amplify the call made by the Right to Know Gambia for the President to prioritize the ECOWAS court judgment, which was issued against the government quite recently. One of the salient instructions handed down by the community court was that the government must now open an inquiry into the events of that fateful day, 14th of April 2016, and bring the perpetrators to book. The longer these reforms and the quest for truth are delayed, the more we will likely continue to see a repeat of the infractions by our security forces to muzzle freedom of assembly, protest, and express opinion in a democratic society. Our nation today stands at a crossroad. The impact of COVID-19 is yet to be fully assessed and understood. Have we, as a nation, considered the uncertainty in the hearts of our people about the future? The dilemma of the single parents to feed, the single mother to feed her children, the embarrassment and confusion confronting
My name is Sekou Jame, and I work at the Gambia Press Union. But my role here today is to chair this meeting, and it is a press conference. We will make the format to be a press conference, and I will kindly ask that we do not turn it into a forum. And the format is going to be like this. We will have a welcoming remarks from the entire civil society in the Gambia. And then we will have question and answer session. Sitting behind me and on my right as well as on my left are all of the civil society leaders you have or you can have in this country. I wouldn't go on to name each and every one, but then we all know that the trigger for today's meeting cannot be mistaken. Madi Jobate, one of us, and very prominent for that matter, has been arrested. He said he was kidnapped, really, by the police. And it is for his comments that he made to the media. For us in the civil society, we know that this is not an isolated incident. And we also know that the civic space is shrinking because the government is casting a very wide web.
All the Gambian delegates promised the international community that never again in this country of ours will we have torture. We wouldn't have arresting people because of their opinion. We wouldn't take people to the 5-star hotel, and so on and so forth. That was a promise in Brussels. And I think it was on the basis of that that the international community were prepared to support the Gambia. I was asked to speak on that occasion. And that was the time when most of the Gambians, we jointly introduced the Never Again.